Parents of Reddit, what is your best why is my kid so stupid moment? Me waking into the bathroom to check on my 4-year-old son having a bath. Why are you smashing your penis with that toy hammer? I have vivid memories of squeezing my balls trying to figure out why it hurt so much. My 12-year-old daughter blamed a squirrel when we asked how the borax for her slime projects moved from the garage to the kitchen counter. It's so fulfilling to go from "I'm pretty sure you're lying" to 100% "I know you're lying." My older brother carved my name into the side of my mum's car with a rock for whatever reason and tried to blame it on me. I was like 4 years old and couldn't write yet. My mom told me about when she was a kid and one time she scratched her name into the dining room table. She did it absent-mindedly and freaked out when she realized what she did, so she scratched all her brother's names into the table too. I'm amazed at how many times I've had to say "don't lick that." I don't have kids, but my nephews were over visiting for Thanksgiving. The youngest was 2. 5. We have pet chinchillas and we showed him that if he offered the chinchillas an apple would stick, the chinchilla would take it from him and start gnawing on it. Well, obviously, this was great fun, so he started giving the chinchillas dozens of sticks, which I'm sure they loved him for. No harm, no foul, by the way. It's not like it's unhealthy for them. It was just getting excessive. At some point his grandpa said enough, and teasingly, for every stick you give them, you have to eat one too. Guess who took several nibbles of a stick before anyone could stop him? My toddler watched at least an hour of an animated movie populated entirely by talking animals. Suddenly, a giraffe came on screen and said something. My kid stood up, pointed at the TV, and angrily yelled, "What? Giraffes can't talk?" "Hey mommy, wanna see a trick?" "Sure honey, show me a trick." Kid runs around in circles to build up momentum, very deliberately crashes headfirst into the wall, then falls down and starts crying. Good trick, sweetie.
N.
When my brother was around 6, he decided he wanted to play Tarzan with a cord hanging in his room. However, the cord kept slipping from his hand, so he decided to swing with it around his neck instead. My poor grandmother walked into the room to find her grandchild apparently trying to hang himself. One night, my brother had a dream. He was being chased by a bear through the woods. No matter how fast he ran, the bear continued to gain on him. At last, he came to a cliff. He had 2 options: throw himself from the cliff onto the rocks below, or be mauled by the bear. He chose the cliff. But wait. Just as he was about to jump, he noticed a vine hanging in midair, just a few feet away from the cliff. He leapt for it, just barely escaping the jaws of the hungry grizzly. That was when he woke up. I should mention that my brother and I shared a bunk bed, and he had the top bunk. The cliff was the edge of his bed. The vine was the pull chain of our ceiling fan. He had about half of a second to realize what an idiot he was before crashing to the ground with the broken pull chain in hand. Edit. Thanks for the silver. Our daughter, when asked what she wanted to be when she grows up, answered, "I want to be a strawberry, but if that's too hard, I want to be purple." The color purple, the fruit strawberry. She was 5. I told my class when I was 4 that I wanted to be a parrot. It sounded cool to be a colorful bird, yeah no? Then some kid told me that was impossible, little jerk. I support your daughter's goals. My son has microwaved ramen noodles with no water a few times. Just so you know, they are flammable and smoke horribly and turn your microwave an awful yellow color. That's nothing. Some grown-ass adult who alleges to be a good chef burned boxed mac and cheese 3 different times. If you burn the same thing the same way 3 times, that's totally on you for being a dum-dum. When a sudden rainstorm hit our campsite, my 11-year-old rescued a full water bucket from the rain and put it under the canopy to keep it dry. When I caught him peeing in the doorway of his room at the age of 5, his reason? "Cause I don't want the kitty coming into my room."
N.
I was that kid. My parents took my siblings and I to a greenhouse garden. Everyone was on their best behavior until I got the sudden urge to lick some foamy stuff off of a window. I was always a good kid, never caused any trouble, but for whatever reason I had this compulsion to lick this foamy stuff off the window. Poison control had to be called. My parents were frantic. It was an ordeal. I was anaphylactic to milk at the time too, and I was definitely old enough to know better. My kids actually seem okay, but here's something I did. Young, about 9, and walking through Paddy's Market in Sydney, about 1971. Dad says I can have $10, a decent amount at the time, to buy anything I want in the market for my birthday. So we're walking around, and I spot a giant crab. This thing is about a foot across. I decided that is what I want for my birthday. I want the crab, son. We have nowhere to keep it. We can keep it in the bathtub. What if we want a bath? We can take showers instead. I did not get my crab and cried about it, and refused to pick anything else too. When my sister was 18, she was planning a trip to California after HS graduation. She spent several days calling banks to get the exchange rate for money, because somehow she was absolutely convinced that regular US currency in Pennsylvania was not usable in California. She thought the banks were all lying to her, that it was the same money. I'm surprised she even found California. If I can be the kid who made my parents ask this question. I walked into a wall when I was 5 because I was walking around looking through binoculars backwards. Got these 2 massive ring bruises around my eyes. When the axe challenge was a thing. Apparently, you spray axe over the front of your shirt, light it on fire, then take the shirt off. I think that's it. Anyway, this genius gets his arm stuck or something as he pulled the shirt off inside out, so, of course, the fire is now burning his face. He gets it off with the help of his friends, and gets taken to the hospital with 2nd-degree burns by his friend's mother, because he was staying over. That was a fun phone call to get at 3 AM. Dad, I'm okay, but I had an accident and Karen has taken me to the hospital to get treated. I told her it wasn't a big deal, but she made me call. On Mother's Day, when I was only small, my dad told me for Mother's Day we would give my mum a lion, because she had had a stressful week between jobs. Of course, tiny me had no concept of what a lion was, and assumed my dad said a lion. Me, are we actually getting mom a lion? Dad, yes, your mum really deserved the lion, so we'll give her one this morning. I then proceed to sprint excitedly to my parents' room, climb onto the bed, jump up and down over my poor sleeping mother screaming, wake up, we are getting you a lion, wake up right now. My mother did not get a lion, or a lion for that matter. When I heard my wife say to my then 3-year-old son, "Name, please stop sniffing all the cars." We were walking through a parking lot. I think I understand what might have happened here. I'm a kid walking through a parking lot when I get a whiff of a sort of fishy/maple syrupy smell. I follow my nose, and it leads me to a car leaking transmission fluid, but I don't know that. I'm just a doofy kid. Now I'm wondering if all cars have smells, and if so, do they all smell like foods? So now I have to sniff the cars as I walk by. I was at my sister's for Thanksgiving and my niece, who is 5, went to feed the dog. She was out of eyesight for maybe 2 minimum when my sister yells, "Stop eating the dog food," and you can hear my niece drop the bowl out of fright because she got caught. My sister never got off the couch and I laughed about it for like 10 minutes straight. My mother always brings up when she asked my brother to turn on the kettle, and he answered, "Shall I make it hot or cold?" And I thought I was stupid. This is about me, and I'm sure my mom almost killed me for this. In 5th grade, I decided it would be a wonderful idea to lock my backpack to my desk with a bike lock I brought to school for some reason and swallow the key for it. I went to the air and the lock stayed there the whole year. As a kid, I would always try to touch hot things like the stove or the clothes iron even after my mom warned me. She eventually figured, frick it, she can touch it, burn herself and learn her lesson. Well, I did not learn the first time, or the second time, or the third time. Honestly, my mother lost count on how many times I actually burned myself. She started guarding me again, since I was clearly too dumb to learn from my mistakes, so I got smarter about how to get around her. I couldn't make the connection of careful it's OT equals IT will hurt like HELL equals DON''T touch it, but I could make the connection of do it quickly / pretend like ULISTENED equals YOU''LL be able to touch it. I also had a cousin who had an interesting reaction to punishment. Let's say he wasn't allowed to play a video game. He would then try to get rid of all his toys, demand to only be served food that he hated, and sit on the floor facing a wall. When asked what he was doing, he would answer, "Since you seem to like taking away things that make me happy, I've decided to be miserable forever. Happy now?" My guess is he wanted the grown-ups to feel bad for him, but the whole thing was hilarious. So dramatic. When I was 11, we were at a park that had one of those swirly slides that is kind of like a tunnel. Well, I wanted to act like a mountain climber and tie a rope around myself and jump down the slide to climb back up. What was the best spot to tie the rope? I asked myself. The neck. Good location to easily grab the rope and pull myself back up, plus convenient tying spot. My parents ran to me yelling and stopped me mid-knot, tying a rope around my neck to jump down a slide. In retrospect, Imadumbus. Edit. Thank you for my first silver kind stranger. My youngest, around the age of 3, lost having curtains in his room after the second time he bent the hook that the curtain rod hangs onto because he tried swinging on his curtains. It turns out that the tiny piece of metal that's designed to hold the weight of a curtain rod is not designed to support a child. Several years later, Wed moved to a new house and decided he was certainly old enough to stop swinging on curtains. We made sure to sit down with him to explain that when he was little, he would swing on them and that it broke the curtain rods. Now that he was around 6 or 7, he was old enough to remember not to climb the curtains. He lost the curtains the next day after he tried swinging on them. Perhaps he thought we were lying to him. Okay, but that could happen to anyone. And 6 or 7, that's still pretty young. When he was 10, he grabbed the wooden towel bar in the bathroom and fell backwards, and then kept falling because the small wooden rod was only attached to the rest of the towel bar via a small piece of wood that was glued to the main structure and, once again, was meant to support the weight of a wet towel or two, not a 10-year-old child. Damn near gave himself a concussion on the side of the bathtub that time. Not my kid, but my niece loves crawling around on the floor trying to lick doorstops. When she's not doing that, she actively searches for dust/lint on the floor and tries to devour it before you take it from her. When my daughter was around 5 years old, I told her to start putting her toys away. She told me she couldn't because she didn't have any hands. While showing me her hands, walked into the bathroom to see my 3-year-old girl with a toilet bowl brush in her mouth. So that was disgusting. Lose debit card. Go through painful renewal process. Finally arrives in the mail. Kid asks, "Can I see it?" He takes it and bends it in half. When my oldest first started walking, he grabbed my card and waddled away. My mom mentioned to me he had it, and I was like, it's okay, he can't run fast. So when I go to grab it, the boy sprints, falls and lands on the card, snapping it in half. My little sister said she wanted to become a toilet when she grew up. I remind her of it quite often. Not me, but my younger brother loved eating ants. He just grabbed a bunch of them and put them in his mouth and started chewing. I guess they bit him, but he didn't care. Edit for spelling. Probably a tie between when he announced he was going to play plastic ghost and pulled a plastic bag over his head, or when he refuses to drink water or blow his nose when he has a cold. When told both of those things help him breathe, his response is always, "No breathing. I hate breathing." Which plastic ghost would seem to substantiate. My son came home one afternoon from school with one shoe. Me, "What happened to your other shoe, son?" "I lost it." M, "What? What do you mean you lost it?" S, "I lost it. I don't know where it is." M, "So, when did you lose your shoe?" S, "At lunch." M, "So you've been walking around all afternoon with only one shoe?" S, "Yup." M, // begins to understand why hamsters eat their young. Edit, fixed syntax error. My daughter was trying to look over the fence in our yard, so she climbed on top of an aquarium, falling through and requiring stitches in her legs and feet. Immediately adjacent to the aquarium was a stepladder. Our kids were probably 10 and 6. We are at a restaurant and they both order hot chocolate. Our drinks come Both my wife and I are putting our straws in our own drinks and not paying attention. Both of the children simultaneously stick straws into the steaming hot chocolate and take huge drinks and start freaking out. My son was 15 at the time and decided he wanted to make pancakes. So, he also decided to use the plastic food cover for the microwave as a mixing bowl. Now if you haven't used one of these, it's full of holes on the top to let steam out and protect your microwave interior from splatters. Well, I come downstairs and has mad as hell. There is pancake batter all over the countertop and has huffing and puffing. This is the worst mixing bowl I've ever seen. Who puts holes in the bottom of mixing bowl? I looked at him, the situation, and said, "Clean this up please," and walked out. I was really worried that he was developing dementia or something. My daughter tested as gifted, then got into the bathtub with her socks on that night. My 2 kids asked me for bananas for their school lunches. So Monday I bought 4 bananas. On Friday all the banana were still there, so I asked why they didn't eat them. They both swore that they ate a banana every day. It must have been the other kid who didn't eat their banana. As if I can't count to 4. They are 12 and 13. This happened 2 weeks ago. Your kids make their own lunches. You have nothing to complain about, lol. You get mad props from me for only buying 4, because, like, you knew they weren't really going to eat that many bananas. Every week I have to confront my kids with lunch sack evidence of uneaten foods. Child, you said you wanted carrots, but you did not eat your carrots. You said you wanted cucumbers, but you did not eat the cucumbers. For the love of God, tell me what fruit or vegetable you will eat. I will buy pomegranate, if that's what it takes. I will buy turnips, if that's what it takes. Please. Just give me something to work with.
N.
I was the stupid kid. I was at my cousin's above ground pool when I was around 5 and there was a bumblebee sitting on the deck. My mom saw it and said go around it. I proceeded to step on it and get stung. I think my little brain said jump over it, and instead I jumped on it. A bee lost its life that day. My sister lost their dog and actually had it cremated. It sits in a locked box on her dresser. One day her 4-year-old knocked over a lamp. He said the dog came out of the box and knocked it over. He doesn't quite understand the concept of death yet. Once when my nephew was around 3 years old we were eating breakfast when he asked if he could go play. I told him to eat 2 more bites of bacon and he could get down. He said he couldn't because then his muscles would get too big and be too heavy. Good answer kid. When my sister was 15 she was playing baseball and ended up getting hurt. She goes to the hospital where the doctor tells her she broke her clavicle. My sister's response was, "So I can never have children when I'm old? Lol, not the brightest bulb." Last year, my son 12 at the time, was sent to the principal's office and I received a call. The principal was trying not to laugh, which confused me initially, and explained that my son was supposed to be in English class writing an assignment about making mistakes. He couldn't think of an example, decided to skip the assignment, and instead made a paper plane and flew it around the classroom. Well, I'm not a parent, but I certainly was a child at one point. I'd had an argument with my dad when I was about 7. He told me to go to my room. I wrote "I hate dad" on the wall in black crayon. Realized I would get my ass verbally beat if he found it, so I managed to keep it covered with a pile of toys for 2 years until we moved house. By the time he found it, it was too late to tell me off, so we just laughed about it. I had my 4-year-old circle things in toy catalogs to start his Christmas list. Since he can't write well yet, he woke up and started absolutely bawling. I rushed in there to make sure he hadn't fallen out of bed or something. He's also prone to night terrors, so there's that. When I asked what was wrong, he goes, "I circled some things I didn't want." We had a midnight meltdown because he circled toys he didn't want. Not a parent, but my 6-year-old brother. My parents ripped up the carpet to lay down new hardwood flooring. In between laying down the new wood, my brother took a Sharpie, drew his signature potato-shaped caricature on the bare flooring of himself, signed it with his shooty 6-year-old handwriting, and then refused it was him. When we asked why he felt the need to draw on the floor, My parents loved the stupidity of it all, and it's still there underneath the floorboards. When I was in like 4th grade, my mom was doing a surrogacy for a friend, and I told my teacher that my mommy is having a baby and it's not my daddy's. But it's okay because he knows, and we aren't going to keep it. Very awkward parent-teacher conferences ensued. I also fell out of my chair and hid my face on my desk every day consistently. They sent a note home with me every day saying Zombunter fell out of her chair and flashed her chin on her desk today, again. When we allowed our kids to choose a pint of ice cream each, my son insisted on grabbing the gallon and wouldn't be told differently. We placed it back in the freezer and told him we were going to check out, so he had 1 minute to grab a different ice cream or get nothing. As our turn to check out comes, our son approaches with both the same gallon of ice cream as well as a jar of maraschino cherries.